Hello and welcome back to Read Becca. You're back again for a chatty weekly catch up on my reading. Let's start with some housekeeping, just random YouTube-y stuff. So the first one is that obviously these videos have not actually been going up on proper Caturday, and that's not anything to do with me. For some weird reason, video processing has been taking a ridiculously long time, and there's no way to tell how long it's going to take. So it's been taking 12 to 24 hours pretty regularly for these longer videos to actually go through. So you'll get it when you get it. I assume nobody really is a stickler for which particular day is going up. I'm going to try to get through this with no edits because that seems to be what is taking up most of the processing, but we'll see. If not, it will eventually be there for you when it's done. In terms of my own like YouTube practices, so I've been terribly behind on comments, on responding to comments, as well as commenting on other people's stuff. So if I'm not commenting on your videos, it's not because I don't like you. If I'm not responding to your comments, I will eventually get back to you, most likely. It is what it is. And in terms of actually watching, I did change up pretty drastically how I was kind of keeping track of and ordering what I'm doing. So I was previously trying to always get through my queue in order from oldest to newest, and I would just not add new videos until I completed that. And that meant I was always like getting through my queue eventually and keeping at a kind of stable rate behind by several days, so I was never actually up to the newest stuff. And I kind of realized I was getting further and further behind, and I just want to keep up on generally a lot of what's happening more recently than I had been. So I switched to watching newest first, and then getting through what I can and adding more whenever I have time. And so I'm kind of always on this cycle now where I have a bunch of new stuff to watch, and if I get through that, then I'm jumping back to about a week prior, and if I get through that, it's jumping back 2 or now even maybe 3 weeks prior. And so I'm watching in chunks and having more at the back of the list that is really old and way behind, but I hope I'll get to it someday. And yeah, I'm liking that I am seeing more of what's going on as it's actually happening. Not that I necessarily engage in a ton of the like hype train stuff, but it's fun to see what's actually happening as it's going. So that's my housekeep stuff. Sorry I ramble too much. This is gonna be a long one, I think. So let's get into the books. I did finish a couple things. So the first one is for BookTube Prize, so I can't really talk too much about it, and it's a tiny one. This is How to Order the Universe. Very little tiny cute book. This is by María José Ferrada and translated from Spanish by Elizabeth Bryer. And I can't say how I felt about it, but this story seems to be like more of a children's YA story, and it does mention that the author writes that. So know that going in, that this is a child narrator, and this child narrator is just giving kind of accounts of this period in her life when she was going along with her salesman father, and he sold 2 hardware stores, traveling around with a case, and kind of that old-timey salesman on the road that you hear about. And that's it. That's all there is to this, really. There is kind of a big event in the latter half that changes their dynamic, and that's about the only tension to this. So that's the story, and you'll hear about it more when the BookTube Prize is done. The next one I don't have too much to say about either, and that is Not Fade Away by Rebecca Alexander. Now, this is, I think, co-written by someone who kind of was a ghostwriter, maybe, Saša Alper. This individual, Rebecca, is someone who is struggling with multiple medical diagnoses and disorders, and as a result has been through going through a progressive loss of hearing and sight. So that's what the Not Fade Away is about, as well as a traumatic injury that left her nearly paralyzed and just in like full body cast and having to go through physical therapy and extreme stuff. So I expected this to be much more medically focused, and it's really not. It is really focused on her day-to-day life and just what it's like living normally as she's dealing with all of these degrading senses. So I think that was interesting. That was not what I wanted out of it though. So I had come to this from a recommendation that it was kind of similar to Brain on Fire. So when this kicks off, we're getting a medical diagnosis, and I thought that it was going to be like exploring that and uncovering information about that. But every time that sort of thing happens throughout the whole course of this book, it's sort of, oh no, something's wrong. Okay, the doctors are doing tests and they're increasingly getting concerned, and people around her are worried, and then they tell her what's wrong. And then she's like, okay, I've got to deal with this, and goes away and deals with it. But most of this is more about her job, her relationships with people. She does eventually incorporate kind of her life experiences into her job. She works as a therapist for like a deaf school at one point, and has had to learn sign, is learning ways to cope in her day-to-day life that make it standard living for her. She eventually gets a cochlear implant, so that was really interesting to hear kind of about the process of that, but it's very brief. I think it was only a few pages spent on describing the process, or even describing her emotions about that process. So for me, because this was mostly focused on a lot of mundane stuff with brief moments about the medical stuff, this didn't really stand out from a standard memoir very much at all. She spends a lot of time as a spin instructor, for instance, so you're hearing a little bit about like why that's more challenging for her if she can't hear in this loud room. She can't make out people trying to get her attention or notice them in her very narrow line of vision at this point. And so you get that mentioned, but most of it's just about spin instructing, you know? So it felt very much like a fine memoir about an exceptional person, but not like an exceptional memoir. So it was okay. And then the big win for this week that I finished was The Seep by Chana Porter. I loved this. This was easily one of my favorites of the year in fiction. This is a weird book, and it is so tiny, but it's like really making you think. So I actually already have a video talking about the thinkiness about this, and comparing it to another book that I've read. So this is about Trina, who is a trans woman, and she and her wife are starting out at this kind of dinner party that they're throwing about the end of the world, basically, because there has been an alien invasion and nobody knows really what's going to happen. And then we're at another dinner party in pretty much the second chapter where the invasion has happened and everybody's fine with it because the Seep who invade are kind of a technology, they're kind of a drug. They make everything possible. And the discussion that goes on there is about art and the difference in making art when you can do anything and you're kind of connected to everyone and you aren't suffering, how that changes the way we conceptualize performance and art. And because everything about identity is completely changeable and fungible, infinitely, you can do anything. You can have dragon wings, you can change your hair, the color of your skin, you can change who you are in any way. Because of that, at this party, it comes up that her wife, Trina's wife, has been thinking about changing and going back to be a baby and grow up only having experienced living with the Seep. And that's possible through this Seep technology. Because she doesn't want to have the memories of what it was like before. And so Trina has been kind of resistant to going all in on the Seep like the friends around her. And she does resist that. Now, the story of this book really kind of threw me because I was expecting it to be about her and her wife grappling with this decision. It's not. Very quickly, that decision is made, and the book is actually about her struggling through grief and people around her being kind of dismissive of that, because the plot of this makes clear that because you can change anything, like, you don't have an individual identity. You are connected with all things, and it has that very like sci-fi hive mind sort of thing going on that we see, where, you know, an alien hive mind doesn't have a concept of individuality, whereas, you know, Trina, not having gone all in on the Seep, she still very much feels that she is made up of her experiences as her identity, especially things like her transness. We see this with other characters throughout. It's very, very smartly done, where their identity is not necessarily mentioned, but you can tell because there are clear identifiers that, you know, someone is Jewish because of the way that they're using certain words, that sort of thing. So it's a great exploration of that. And I loved that Trina's identity as trans is not a big part. It's mentioned, but it's made clear that throughout this whole book, that plays into everything about who she is and how she conceptualizes the world, because it's her past experience that has built up to who the person is that she is today. So I just love this. I thought it was really great, and I always talked about it more than I wanted to, because I've talked about it in another video already, and hopefully I will get that up later this week. I didn't manage to get it up last week, unfortunately, because things were just too hectic. I didn't have time to edit it, but the Seep was fantastic. So, in stuff that I've got in progress, I've got multiple things. So firstly, and interestingly, actually one that I started is The Last Cuentista by Donna, Barba, Higuera, and this one has some pretty big like identity or loss of identity elements to it too. So I'll talk about that more when I finished it. Definitely, we'll see how it goes, but that definitely has me thinking about things to do with the Seep. The Light from Uncommon Stars by Ryka Aoki is another one I'm in progress on. And I was reading this in print, but I switched it to the audio because I really need to focus on my BookTube prize books, and I already have finished the only one that's available on audio. So I've got those in print. This one I'm getting pretty far along into it, so I think we'll have this one finished next week. And I'll also want to focus on finishing all of my monthly TBR books, so hopefully we will get through that one. And then the one that I started today and have gotten really good progress. Instead of doing audiobook, I took this to the gym with me and read over 100 pages in an hour and a half of cardioing. So you can see what I can get done when I don't have important animal needs demanding my attention every 10 minutes. Yeah, so this one is Where You Come From by Saša Stanišić. And this is one of my last big ones for the BookTube prize. I think I have one more after this on ebook. We're gonna finish BookTube prize in time. Yeah, so those are all the books I have in progress in print and audio. I kind of put on hold Baggage by Cumming, not because there's anything wrong with it, it's great, but I need to really focus on these. That one is not on my TBR or on BookTube prize, so kind of got set aside for a couple of days probably. And then on ebook, I am still reading Swordheart, so that's still going. So for my week, we had an interesting week. So work was insanely crazy, and it just would not let up. So I'm feeling very frustrated in general with work right now. We had lots of general problems, lots of conflict with people, and like things are just not going as smoothly as I would say. So I'm just feeling really annoyed at everyone and everything right now, work-wise. So last night, actually, I did kind of like a self-care night. I just relaxed. I wanted to get out of work at like 3 because there is the big, massive charity book sale this weekend. I was so excited, and 3 o'clock slipped by. There were issues still going on that I need to wrap up. 4 o'clock, I was like, I'm gonna leave at 4. Didn't make it out at 4. So I made it out 10 minutes before 5. And fortunately, I mostly managed to skip the evening rush after 5. Or maybe it happened earlier since it's Friday and all the lucky people got to leave early. But it was really, really great. So even with having missed the time I wanted, I got over to the book sale and it was not crazy busy, even with being there only after people were let off work and stuff. It ended up being really nice. I didn't know if the location they were at was going to be air conditioned, and it was, thank goodness, because it was 100 degrees yesterday. And I had a great time. I got a lot of books, so you'll be seeing those soon. I got a ton of books, actually, like way too many books. But I did better than I have in past years, if that tells you anything. I wound up with 2 bags instead of boxes full. So I had a great time there. Then I stopped and got some Chinese food, which was like, I don't normally eat a lot of stuff with like sauces or noodles because I avoid gluten. My family has celiac disease runs in our family. And so that like, it's something that you want to avoid in general because I think it's like a hereditary thing that is like an on-off type of gene. So anyway, ramble. So I did all that, really relaxed. And then this morning, as I said, I got up early and went to the gym for some extra cardio since I had the Chinese food and really enjoyed that. Like, I don't normally go and just do like an hour and a half of cardio. So this was nice because I was totally in my book. I was very focused and was just like going away at the cardio and not really having to worry about switching machines or going to get weights or any of that stuff. It was just go on the cardio, and I love doing that because it reminds me of like back when I was running, where you just kind of just head down and keep going forward. So that was a great morning for me. So now it is ridiculously hot and I will be doing nothing for the rest of the day because it's over 100 again. So in other stuff, I talked last week about Gumbo and the fact that she is on drugs. She is doing really well with her new medication for anxiety and seems to be like mostly calm. The only real issue we're having is getting her to consistently eat that stuff in her food. She takes it with like wet food mixed in. And so some days she is really wary of it and just avoids the wet food, and that's fine. I think every other cat in the house has gotten a little bit of it before I catch them on these days, which is not a big deal. It's a very safe medication. So we've had some very mellow cats alternately, but she's doing great. She's letting me like touch her, pet her. We haven't done like picking up. She's still extremely afraid of. I think that's it, other than like on top of work being stressful, my house has decided to attack me and really ruin my week. My bathroom light in my guest bathroom randomly went out. So if anybody has suggestions for how you can tell if it's the actual like lighting unit and I can just replace that, or it's actually electrical and I need to get an electrician, that would be very helpful. I'm sure I'll be looking up some YouTube videos sometime in the near future, but it's not something I have to deal with immediately because it's my guest bathroom and I don't terribly often have people in there, so I'm not too terribly worried about it. And my towel rack in my bathroom, one side just randomly came off, and so I've been trying to get that reattached. So it's like all taped up. It's a porcelain one, so it's very heavy. So I got the stuff like to get it attached back on and then taped it on so that it would stay to harden. So it's doing that today. Yeah, the joys of home ownership and having to take care of things yourself. It's great fun. So I think that's it for my week. For shows, last weekend I wound up watching all of the new show The Bear, which is about like a restaurant, a struggling restaurant with an arcade in it, but like they make meat sandwiches and stuff. It is really emotional, really high stress, I would say. So don't watch it if you can't handle people yelling a lot and very stressed out about this struggling restaurant. But I really enjoyed it, and I think the performances were fantastic. Every single person on the show is great. The main cast, there are only a couple people that I had seen before. The main chef guy, I didn't know who he was, but the cousin of his and his sister are people I had seen before. And then I love and want more of Joel McHale. He shows up as this absolute horrible, like abusive head chef in a couple of the episodes for like a few minutes. It's not a big role. So I want him to show up more, even though he's evil, pure evil, but that's perfect for him. And then What We Do in the Shadows is back, which is very exciting. I absolutely love that show. So very happy to have our goofy vampires back, and they crack me up. So I watched that last night after I got home with my Chinese food. I think that's it for my week, actually, and I've already rambled on too long, as always. So we're gonna try to not edit this, and my recommendations for the week are Book Whimsy. Cynthia is a historian, and she is doing this great series on the history of reproduction. I think she's copying over like book talk TikTok videos, so they're in the wrong format and they're very brief, but they're really good quality in terms of content, so I highly recommend watching that. The Paper Traveler did a great video, a fun video about the dilemmas of a book nerd, and that one is just an entertaining one. And then books I'm not reading, Kelly and her husband, whose name is eluding me right now, but his channel is Old Blues Chapter and Verse, and they did a argument, a debate on Jane Austen, so perfect for Jane Austen July, about two different adaptations of one of Austen's work. So it was really fun to see them duke it out verbally over which one is actually superior, and I'm sure there was no love lost between them, but it was really fun to watch. So that's it for my week. I hope everyone is having a better week than I am with the stress levels, and I hope we have a lovely week next week, because my temperature is finally going to come down for a couple days at least before going right back up into the hundreds again. So I hope it's cool and wet, maybe where you are, versus the heat that is seemingly endless here in the lower Midwest. So that's it for me. Thank you so very much for watching. Oh my goodness, my plant that got eaten last week. Look at all these beautiful baby new leaves. It's growing like crazy. So I should be getting new siding this year. I live in a condo, so the association gets that, but I waited to put all my peacocks out, hoping that would happen, and that has not happened yet, so I just got the peacocks out. So here's my garden peacocks. This one turns in the wind. Got tiny peacocks in blue and yellow. Guy glows at night. And then we've got this nice rotating one. Hello, buddy. Hi. One of my new dahlias is about to come, and my Holy Grail hibiscus, it looks like, is about to have its first bloom open up. Very nice. A very tiny bun. We've got one happy little surprise flower here. I planted butterfly seeds, just a big mix, and I love to see what randomly pops up. I think this is sadly the only one that actually grew this year. But I was very happy. I didn't know what it was going to be until this little guy bloomed.